Welcome in. You are listening to the Dynasty Market Watch, where yesterday's price is not today's price, presented by the Bulletproof family of podcasts. I'm Todd Halverson. I'm joined by Brian O'Leary and Matt Davis. This is a special episode of the Dynasty Market Watch. We are analyzing the best Dynasty league ever seen. And by the way, those aren't adjectives. That's the actual league name. The best Dynasty league ever seen is a 10-team Superflex league with full PPR, and it kicked off last off season.
Yeah, the best league ever, 10-teamer, 4-point pass touchdown, and it has kickers and defense. I don't know if they were going for irony or what, but yeah, we got the best league ever seen here. But in classic or in classic Dynasty fashion, it already has an orphan after a year, so we do got that going for us.
Hey, let's go ahead and just congratulate Jay Singh on his championship after the first year. Woo! Jay Singh, everybody. And if you ain't first, you're last. So let me just be the first to say that if I'm not Jay Singh, the guy that I want to be is Mr. H. Montgomery at the 101. Round of applause for H. Montgomery.
Woo! Yeah.
So I'll be the first to go and announce it. H. Montgomery is on the clock officially. And when you're on the clock right here, a lot of people in the 12-teamers are talking about Caleb Williams. Do you take Marvin Harrison Jr. at the 101 and a 10-team? Let's actually lead off with that. But first, Brian, hit us with that, Fat Joe.
Yesterday's price is not today's price.
All right, Brian. So like I said, H. Montgomery is on the clock, the 101. The decision is Caleb Williams or Marvin Harrison Jr., in my opinion. The question to me, though, that I'm going to ask you is, in a 10-teamer, is there less value on a Caleb Williams or a quarterback in general that would maybe push you towards Marvin Harrison Jr.?
So I think even within this podcast, I think we have opposing views. In my opinion, there's still value in a stud quarterback. There's no doubt about it. But with the scoring that we have in this league, with the 10-team versus 12-team, that makes a huge difference for quarterbacks. And for me, I'm really thinking about Marvin Harrison Jr. at 101 in a 10-team. Unless his quarterback situation is terrible, which we'll get into, I think that is, I wouldn't say a no-brainer, but it's a positive net move, in my opinion.
So you mentioned the scoring. For me, I can see that because they have 4-point pass touchdowns. I don't play in any leagues like that. All of our leagues are 5-point pass touchdown, and then I play in a few that are 6. So with 4 points for a pass touchdown, I can see nuking the quarterbacks a little bit. But personally, I don't treat quarterbacks that differently in 10 or 12 teams. So, Brian, if you want to talk a little bit real quick about that, is it just the scarcity element is gone a little bit, and that's why you value them a little lower?
And just like the value in general, yeah, like and again, we'll get deeper into each team, but especially knowing that Monty has a couple other picks that he could get that quarterback that maybe isn't Caleb, but is Jaden Daniels, is, JJ McCarthy, whoever it is. I think you get the stud receiver that is easier, not easy, but easier to predict what they're going to bring to your team. I don't like the volatility of a quarterback in general.
Yeah, my thing is that in a 10-teamer, I think I tend to actually value like Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes. I think I value those guys more. And then I probably devalue the other guys a little bit more because I think there's more of those like Caleb Williams, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, those types to go around. Like there's more of an opportunity for me to get one of those or maybe two of those guys. And so I probably would prop up the top end guys and then maybe like knock down the other guys. So that's why I think Marvin Harrison Jr. would be maybe closer to a 50-50 toss up to me. I don't think it's like a smash Marvin Harrison Jr. though. I think it's just it brings it into play where it's me in the 12 team. It's on play. Like you should be taking Caleb Williams.
Yeah. I think it's interesting scoring. Like one person I thought was interesting that you included, Jalen Hurts. I think a lot of people are souring on, and one person that you excluded, Lamar Jackson, who is someone that we've talked about a lot on the pod. And with 4-point touchdown passing, he's not a high volume passer, but his rushing comes into play that that lower volume of like the passing quarterbacks, pocket passers, like CJ Stroud versus Lamar Jackson is a no-brainer to me. Lamar Jackson in this type of scoring.
Yep. In this format, like Lamar Jackson's like boosted up into that Mahomes tier because of his ability to, get rushing. Every rushing touchdown is worth 2 more points than a passing touchdown. And, those like 3 or 4 passing touchdown games that like a Mahomes might get they're nerfed a bit. They're dropping. I mean, you're losing 2 points for every one of them. So yeah, I think it's an interesting debate. If you mentioned our guy H Monty's situation, he's sitting there with only CJ Stroud basically at quarterback. I mean, he lost Justin Fields. He has Bryce Young. He has that opportunity. We're talking about 4 point per passing league. Jaden Daniels, he takes a little bit of a boost here in this type of format. So I think that's like an added element. And H Monty, he's got the 4th pick. So he's got some other options, like you mentioned, Ryan.
Yeah, we're going to get into team breakdowns here pretty soon. But when we were kind of auditing this league and looking at the teams, that did stand out to me. Coombs 97, aka Put in Ron. His team has Lamar and Anthony Richardson, so that's the duo you want to kind of grab in this type of format.
It's a nice pair. That's a nice pair.
All right, so Brian, maybe you can kind of just give a rundown of kind of like what the agenda is, how we're going to run this out, and then we will rock and roll.
Yeah, so the contest was a huge success in our opinion. We got a lot of people that were interested. This happened to be one of the winning teams or winning leagues. And basically what we want to go is break down from worst to first in Matt's projections. And Todd and I might have some objections on these rankings. And of course, nothing's set in stone. A lot can change in dynasty rosters, in players' values. But we want to break down like the highlights of each team. We want to break down their current draft capital, some moves that they've made, a general direction that we think might be good or bad, and where they're headed, and then recommended like types or styles of moves that we might do if we were in those situations. Again, not law, just something to think about.
Yeah, and the thing that stood out to me when trying to rank these teams is the league is about a year old, and it is very well balanced. Like a lot of the leagues we're in, after a year or so, you start to see like a really heavyweight prohibitive favorite emerge. You see like, oh man, that team's a disaster. It's 2-3 years away from competing. We don't have any of those situations in this league, so I think it's pretty well condensed.
Well, there is one, and maybe that's where we're going to start off. And our guy Bradford ditched the league after year 1, and it's for no reason other than maybe his team is just a bunch of pile of shit. But our guy Sam Coatney, he's coming in, and he's going to take it over and maybe get this thing turned back around.
Yeah, but I mean, this is a good example. We'll get into this team. If this is the worst team in the league, like it's not hopeless, It's got Jamar Chase, it's got Garrett Wilson, it's got all its future picks, which is like a very key element. If you're going to be the worst team in the league, you want to have that. It's got the 108, so apparently it made the playoffs last year, which seems kind of wild if you look.
Yeah, but if I've got a shot to take a shot at the guy that orphaned after year 1, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. He went all in. It didn't work, and then he kind of pieced out.
Left Sam Coatney for joining the league. You get an applause as well.
Left Coatney to pick up the pieces.
And on the other side of it, he's a legend for stepping up, but also CT isn't real is starting to make me question some things. Hopefully, the decision making will be better than those that do have that disease that is real.
Yep. So let's.
Cody just turned off the podcast.
Whoops.
So let's get into some of the roster highlights for CTE isn't real. So quarterbacks, it's got Geno, it's got Aaron Rodgers, it's got Danny Dimes. What more could you ask for there? Wide receivers, it's got Jamar Chase and Garrett Wilson. So two top 5 studs to anchor it. It's got Dalton Kincaid at tight end, and then you start getting into Devontae Adams, Nick Chubb, Austin Eckler, James Cook. It's got the 108, 208. It does have Chase Brown, who I do like, but if Chase Brown's getting mentioned with the highlights, that tells you kind of where we're at. Wandell, guy I like, but yeah, overall, I wouldn't call it a strong team. So what's your initial thoughts on it, Brian?
I think it's the worst team. And again, to get Sam back on our side, hopefully he hasn't muted us at this point. He didn't do this, right? He's stepped up and he's picking up the shit that guy left him, the dickhead that left. So basically, and hopefully not for no crazy circumstances. If so, I apologize. But I think the first question I have, and I'm throwing something back to you, Matt and Todd. So why don't you start with it, Todd? If you inherit this team, are you breaking down Garrett Wilson or Jamar Chase into parts or pieces, like additional pieces?
What do you think, Todd?
I think I'm riding the lumps here. I'm holding on to Jamar Chase. I'm holding on to Garrett Wilson, and I'm probably going to just have to take my medicine. Probably going to look to move Davante Adams at some point. This team's in a tough spot. I think the worst thing that this team could probably do if I was taking it over is try to run it back and try to sneak into the playoffs. This team needs to get the 101 next year and go figure it out later. But I do want to call out that, like, having Jamar Chase and Garrett Wilson, that's a lot of fun. So
yeah,
I don't think breaking them up is the first thing I'm looking to do. It's got Dalton Kincaid, that's fine. Like there's some things heading in the right direction here. Got its picks, like you said. So like there's way worse orphans to take over than this one. I've seen way worse orphans,
and it's got the
Kansas teams in this one. So
it's got the Kansas City Chiefs kicker. So I don't know if you want to reconsider your opinion on it competing there. So.
Yeah, see, I'm not even looking at the defenses and kickers.
Nothing.
Like every time you bring those,
we will not be analyzing the kicker and defense. Sorry, guys. We're just kind of treating all those as neutral. I agree with you though. I'm keeping Jamar Chase. I'm keeping Garrett Wilson. I kind of want to keep Kincaid, but I'm also open to moving him if someone's going to pay up, especially with the Diggs trade. Outside of that, I'm trying to move everybody, man. I'm trying to move Eckler. I'm trying to move Cook, Davante Adams.
Man, I love Davante Adams this year. Like, yeah, I think somebody in this league should be trying to get Davante Adams. I think somebody in this league should be trying to get guys like Zach Moss. They should be trying to get guys like Chase Brown off this roster. Austin Eckler, I think, is still fine if you're a contender. So, like, yeah, in a 10 team, you want to have superstars for sure. But there's some pieces on this team that, contending teams could use. It's not a deep league. Like, what are we starting here? Let's hit that really quick. We're starting 2 running back.
Start 10.
2 running back,
start
2
10
receivers.
Plus kicker defense.
Yeah, and then three flex. So, what do we do? Start 9 10. Plus kicker defense.
10.
Start 10. Well, yeah. Okay, so. I think there's some pieces on that team that people should be after.
Yeah, James Cook. James Cook is a running back I'm interested in, especially after the Diggs trade. This team should have no problem getting a future first for James Cook, in my opinion. And somebody should pay that, and he should probably accept it.
And like as we're getting on, we might hit less tangents, but I got one more tangent on. It's like, what is when you think about the first round value in a 10-teamer? They're a little bit more valuable. Like you may be losing the semis and it's 107 or 108. So that kind of changes the feeling of those first round picks. But at the same time, you need the top of the top end players in a 10-teamer. This isn't a super deep starting league like we just mentioned. So is a first rounder worth more than in a 12 team? Yeah, probably. But at the same time, the players that you need to win, you need better production than what those first rounders might return, if I'm making sense. I don't think I
am. I mean, that's the thing that pops out with a 10 team is like every team looks kind of decent, especially if you're used to 12-team format. Like we just talked about the worst team in the league. And again, it's got Chase, Davante, Garrett Wilson, Cook, Kincaid, Chubb, Eckler. So, I mean, if that's the worst team in the league, that kind of tells you the difference between 10 and 12 team.
Yeah, I mean, like H. Montgomery is the one that added us to his team, right? And so, like, he's got Stroud, Achane, T. Higgins, Pitts. I'm like, oh, this team's not that bad. But then you think about a 10 team, oh, no, this team is really bad. And it's got a long way to go. It's obviously got a bunch of picks and everything. But, like, I can understand now why it has the 101.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just circling back, he does have it's 108, 208, 308, all futures. I agree. James Cook is the first person that I'm listing. I'm finding a running back needy team and moving him ASAP, obviously, or ideally before the draft. That's what my thought process would be. In terms of like I would probably move Kincaid, but I would definitely want to move Adams probably early to midseason, and I want to move Rodgers probably, shed those points. Again, someone's going to need a quarterback, be that option for them. But you got to be
active.
I mean, my only thoughts
active.
are Sam Coatney, don't trade that 25 first. Somebody's going to come after you. They're going to come after wanting that pick. Don't give that bad boy up.
Yeah, go the opposite way. I mean, keep your picks, add future draft capital where you can. You got 2 bedrock wide receivers to build around. And
ride your Stallions.
So,
yep.
If someone comes after one of them with a Godfather offer, I'm listening. But it really has to be like 4+ first for Chase for me to move him in this format.
And Godfather offer is not like Friday night at 2 a.m. and you guys are on a Zoom or something like that talking about this and that. Like it actually has to be Godfather offer in the morning when the orange juice is being drank instead of the gin.
Yeah, I mean, I've made some unfortunate trades in the past late at night, and this is not a team that you want to make mistakes with. You want to be careful about who you're trading and why and all that. So,
all right, let's keep it rolling. The next team has Jordan Love on it, so I know Matt, like you're already like
keep it in your
over
pants.
here getting buzzed off of that alone. So let's hit on all you need is love. Z-Doors.
Yeah. So all you need is love. So they got Jordan Love and Joe Burrow, so 2 elite QB1s there. Javonte, Derrick Henry at running back. They got Tyreek, Sun God Amon, Ayuk. That's a very strong wide receiver trio. Then they got Christian Watson to stack with Love. Dalton Schultz at tight end. They do not have a lot of draft capital. They only have the 309 this year, but they do have all their future draft picks, which is good.
So Matt, let's hear this. This is seeming really strong to me for number 9. So what was the thought process here? Is it the lack of draft capital that you're kind of not feeling great about?
Yeah, I mean, again, this kind of goes back to the point we were making about 10 teams being a little bit stronger in general, and also what I said at the top. This league is pretty well balanced. Like this team, I did rank it second to last. It does have a very good shot at competing for the playoffs this year. I don't love the tight end situation, Schultz and Kraft, Hunter Henry. That's a really rough tight end room, especially in the 10-team format. And then, the running backs are kind of thin. Javonte and Henry, I don't know what you're getting from them. Mostert, Singletary could be fine. So, yeah, this team can compete. I wouldn't necessarily say what we just said for the CTE team and say blow it up and, tank this year. I would kind of approach it as, let's see if I can compete. If September doesn't go my way, I am looking at maybe selling off Tyreek and Henry and a couple other pieces and just kind of retool for next year type thing. But love Burrow and the wide receivers.
I think it's a decent team. I think one thing to remember with the tight end position is that if it's only a 10-teamer, so if one person doesn't basically have a tight end, that means that multiple other teams probably have 2-3 tight ends, which they do. And so I think there's probably a trade to be had where you could get like an Evan. I mean, I don't know exactly, like an Evan Ingram or like an Njoku. Those types of guys are probably readily available to go and acquire. So I think this team could probably fill a gap like that pretty easily. But I mean, any team with Tyreek, any team with ARSB is that duo. I mean, that's probably, the best wide receiver duo in the league? It's got to be that. I mean, we just saw a team with Chase and Garrett Wilson. I'd probably go Tyreek and ARSB as far as 2024 season goes.
Yeah, this year, right?
It's pretty close, but yeah, I mean, Tyreek and Amon, you're talking about they're going to be in contention for top 1 or 2, 3 wide receivers in the draft.
I think this is a team that if I were them in this spot and I don't have my 25 first, or he does have his 25 first, he doesn't have his 24 first. Okay. I think I think I'm competing with this team. I'm trying to contend for sure. But I gotta know and let us know in the comments or something the trade traded away 206 for Jalen Hyatt. Is he a Giants fan? Is he a Tennessee fan?
Is he Jalen Hyatt himself?
Is it Jalen Hyatt? Yeah, that's a great
question.
I
mean, are we doing a league with an NFL player here? That trade made no fucking sense to me. Because
and also 206, and so that means that a 10 teamer, like in our minds, is like the 204.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about.
I know Jalen Hyatt's rookie. Dad is really like in tune to what's going on. He's like his trainer, so I don't know if in England.
Is this like a Kratos situation where it's like Romo Dunze's like father like scouring Twitter for the like 24/7, just like has some type of bot scouring for his name?
The better question is who made that offer of the 206 for Jalen Hyatt? Because I think I would have been offended when I received that offer.
Yeah, that's just a rough trade. And then the only other trade I saw this team make, I can see how this was somewhat defensible back in September, especially the end of September if the team started hot. I thought it was competing, but it traded Jerick McKinnon and its 2024 first, which became the 106 for Derrick Henry on September 29th of this past season. So, I mean, you talk about 106 versus Derrick Henry. That's not really close in value right now. So that's kind of a win now trade that didn't really work out for this team.
Yeah, so I think
before we head on to the next one.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So before we head on to the next teams, I do want to just give the counter that I'm standing with Z Doris. I think this team's a full-on contender. I think it's maybe a piece or two away. So we're kind of going in Matt's list. So I'm throwing them under the bus a little bit here. But I think this is a team that is right in the thick of things. I think Jordan Love, as Matt's noted multiple times, I think Jordan Love's a stud. I think this team is ready to rock. It just needs to make a couple moves, and
it needs a tight end.
Needs a tight end. Yeah, you throw Evan Ingram on this roster, or Njoku, or you get all the way up to like a Mark Andrews. Yeah, this team's ready to roll.
No, I think you were right there. I'm not really probably targeting Andrews with the assets this team has, but like Evan Ingram, Njoku, George Kittle, I'm trying to shop in that aisle probably.
Yeah, George Kittle. Yeah.
Yeah, this team's bench is rough, but let's also
that's
note
that they have Joe Burrow.
We didn't even mention Joe Burrow. We've been talking Joe Burrow and Jordan Love. So like this team's good.
But again, Jordan Love and Joe Burrow, like we were kind of talking up top, they are elite quarterbacks in 4-point pass touchdown. I like them a little bit less, but
I agree.
Clip that. Jordan Love, not that great. Clip it.
But yeah, so when we were looking at the direction each team should head, CTE is the only team of the 10 that I said reset in 2024, do not compete. I think all of the other 9 teams have a reasonable shot at competing. So I would agree. If I have this team, I'm not blowing it up. I'm seeing what I can do this year with it.
All right, take us into the next team.
Yeah, so his favorite team here, like we were saying, it's got Justin Herbert and Kyler Murray. So it's set at quarterback. Then it's got CMC, Chris Olave, Devontae Smith. It's got it's 2025 first. JSN, David Montgomery, Deontay Johnson, Alvin Kamara, Khalil Shakir is a guy that I really like. And then it's got all its future picks. So another team that I think is kind of competing this year. It's a little bit thin. It doesn't have a great bench, but again, if a guy like Shakir can take a step here, Monty's always a every week starter. So what do you think?
This would be the team for me that is in a little bit of a gray area of, are they really a contender? Like they would be the team that I think on paper you're contending, you're trying to win, but I think it's just because you have CMC. And if you took CMC and turned it into, even if it was like Kyron Williams, I'd be like, oh no, this isn't a contender. And it's
Are you shopping CMC if you have this team?
I think what I'm doing is probably, because here's the thing. It's got 2 good quarterbacks, but there's several teams that have 2 good quarterbacks. And you've got Olave, Devontae Smith, so you got a real nice wide receiver duo. But then from there, we're getting a little bit shaky. I just don't see, like, I'm trying to, like I said at the beginning, like, if you're not first or last, I'm trying to win a championship. And I just have a hard time seeing this team being the one that gets over the hump to win a championship. In a 10-teamer, anything can happen in the play. I mean, any league, any team can happen in the playoffs, but especially when you think about how this team, like you mentioned, it's not that top heavy. Like, there's a lot of parity in this league. I just have a hard time seeing that, like, unless CMC goes bananas again, this team could just miss the playoffs. And I don't know that I really view this team, like, doesn't have its first this year. So it's not like we're going to get better in a few weeks. So I don't know. This probably would be a team that I view as the next step down from the Sam Coatney team, ready to, like, can I target the 102 next year? And then I come into 2025 ready to go. Here's the other thing. Justin Herbert, there may not be a bigger Justin Herbert fan than me. I think I've got 6 out of 14 leagues have Justin Herbert on them. But this year's going to be a little bit rougher given what his supporting cast is. Like, his receivers are going to suck. Maybe they add neighbors or something. The offensive line's not that great. They're probably going to be a little bit more run heavy this year. So, like, Kyler's pretty awesome in this format. But yeah, this team, to me, I think we're ready to maybe just take a step back, go after that 102. Given the way that the other teams are probably contending, it may not be hard to get the 102.
Probably not. Go ahead, Brian.
I think I'm with Todd here, that I'm kind of maybe pushing in a direction, not aggressively, but I think CMC is someone that I'm kind of shopping, especially for those heavy contenders or someone that, like, is really looking to, like, really bolster on paper what their projections are week 1. That's somebody that, as much as I love CMC, I'm shopping. And if I can get, like, a bona fide stud receiver for CMC in this setup, I'm doing that. That being said, just talking about a couple of the moves that they've made, I like including startup picks when possible. The Kyler pick, 805 in a startup, is unreal value for this format. Unreal value.
Yeah.
Now we know Dynasty has its highs and its lows. He took Quentin Johnson round 6 of the startup.
So 2 rounds ahead.
Yin and yang.
The discount,
but hey, just say Kyler in the 6th round.
Yeah,
still a win. So
the Kyler discount was insane all in every league last summer. But another trade it made mid-season. I hate Bryce Young, and I don't even like this trade. On November 27th, this team traded away Bryce Young for Alvin Kamara. So especially if you're talking about kind of stepping back and retooling, that's not a great trade, but I'm not sure this guy's going to follow our advice to kind of reset.
Nor should he, technically, right? Like,
I wouldn't either.
Get after it. He's Heath's favorite team for a reason. There's some type of reason that Heath loves him. Maybe he's a bigger Herbert fan than Todd. We'll have to find out. But this team is strong. It just, I'm not sure it stacks up with the rest.
Let's not forget that this is a CMC team that didn't make the playoffs. Or if it's, I guess it's, do 6 teams make the
it did not make the playoffs. 6. So
it missed the playoffs with CMC. We shouldn't be running it back. This is if I'm holding, I don't want to be holding the bag on 2 back-to-back spectacular CMC seasons that don't make the playoffs.
I think if you can get, like, in this situation, I think he could have maybe the best of both worlds, and I'm exposing him to the rest of the team maybe, with this. But if you can trade CMC and get, like, I don't know, an Aaron Jones type plus a like CMC plus something small for Aaron Jones and a stud receiver, his team is going to contend pretty similarly probably, but also be set up a little bit nicer for the future. I would love doing that. Like, if you can get, like, somebody like I don't know, Garrett Wilson, probably not Garrett Wilson in this league, but like that range to pair with Olave and Devontae Smith.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson owner, do not trade for CMC, please. But no, I get what you're saying though. If
conceptually,
I'm looking to add draft capital if I'm doing that move. So I'm maybe targeting a receiver from the glob, as Todd likes to say. Like, so if I can get maybe like Addison or T. Higgins in the first, that's something I'm kind of interested in with CMC. Because to me, I'm not trading CMC for less than 2 firsts in value. Ideally, a little bit more than that. So that's what I would try and do. Instead of like Aaron Jones and a young receiver, I'm looking at, can I get T. Higgins in a first? Can I get Jordan Addison in a first? Can I get, something like that? What do you think, Todd?
Yeah, I mean, I just would be ready to hit the reset button. If you're not first, you're last here. So like let's hit the reset button. There's a lot of really solid teams. It'd be pretty easy to go get the 102 with this team or in this league because there's not really many tankers. So go get that 102. There's a lot of as every draft class, there'll be a couple good studs that you can pick from next year. So hit the reset button, take your medicine and be ready to rock in 2025. But this team, it's not like this team's broken or anything. It's just like, this will be my preferred. There'll be a lot of people that would look at this team and be like, no, you can go and win this year. You have CMC, go make a couple moves and you're ready to go, which is true. This team could go and you could move the 25 first. You could turn JSN into a Devontae Adams and
a productive player.
Yeah, you could go and you could turn this team around but turn this team into a contender very quickly. No questions asked. That's just not the way that I play. So, but I understand if someone wanted to do that. I mean, you've got the pieces there.
So speaking of JSN, the other move that we did see this team make on January 13th, so right after the season, basically, this team gave up the 104 this year and Michael Mayer and got JSN and the 201 this year. Didn't love that trade just because the 104 is so valuable. I mean, you're talking about Jaden Daniels or Malik Neighbors probably in this format. You're going to get one of the two. That's easily the best piece in the deal. I'm not a huge JSN guy, but this team probably is because they made this trade. So
yeah, I mean, I'm still pretty high on JSN. I mean, as we talked about during the season, I had a lot of him, traded a lot of him during the year because I thought he was way overvalued. I think now, I've talked a lot about the wide receiver glob. He is kind of at the back end, at the very, very end of that wide receiver glob, around like wide receiver 25. And so I think he's probably properly rated, but what's the case for having him? If you have him in a rebuild team, yes, I'm okay with it because maybe you're hoping that you get a huge value increase. I don't really see the case of having him on a contender for sure, though. So, but yeah, this team's going to rebuild, then that's fine. But yeah, I would prefer the 104. Obviously, is the best piece in that deal. But it's not like the worst trade I've ever seen or anything. Like 201, remember, it's like
it's fine.
It's like the 111 in a 12 teamer. So, there's going to be some solid players there at the 111. You got JSN. Michael Mayer is, whatever, especially in a 10 teamer. Michael Mayer is kind of like whatever.
Yeah. He's just a flyer, basically.
Yeah. All right. So we've gone 10, 9, 8. Why don't you take us to 7 here, Matt? Who's 7 in your standings?
Yeah, this is Baldwin.
Before you do your standings, can you clarify to me, are we doing like standings for 2024? Are these standings for like dynasty value? What are we doing here?
I basically just did dynasty value. I did not spend a lot of time ranking these teams. I kind of looked at the whole league. After we did our audit, I probably spent 10, 15 minutes looking at it. And like I said a couple times already, the thing that stood out to me was how bunched up and condensed this league is. So all these teams, you can make a fair case, I think, to either rebuild or push to contend. I think this team that we're going to talk about is the same way. So Baldwin 57, aka my team is in jeopardy. He might be right there. So if we talk about some of the highlights, the one that stands out is Justin Jefferson, got the big dog, wide receiver 1. It's got the 106 this year, which is going to be a really nice pick. Jonathan Taylor, Trey McBride, Zay Flowers, Travis Etienne. It's got George Pickens, Jaden Reed, Kirk Cousins, Will Levis. Will Levis, this team made a nice trade to get Will Levis and Zay Flowers, by the way. And then
mid-season.
What's that?
They were listening to you mid-season on trading for Will Levis.
Yeah, they paid a cheaper price than I did, that's for sure. And then it's got some depth pieces: Stafford, Najee, Joe Mixon, Jake Ferguson, Jerry Jeudy. So Brian, what kind of stands out for you with this team?
I'm a huge Justin Jefferson fan. I think he's a great foundational piece. I love Jonathan Taylor. I think he is maybe a little bit of a sketchier asset in this type of build. Maybe like I love Jonathan Taylor when I know I'm for sure like a lead contender. I don't know how much I love that, and I assume they paid a pretty penny for him to get there. I think Cousins and Stafford it's nice short term on paper, but the 106 I would be hopeful that there's a quarterback available, and I would start thinking about ways that I can lengthen my team's success probability. So Jonathan Taylor is someone that might be a victim of that in my estimation.
Well, and the thing about the 106 with this team is I think the most common player we see mocked at 106 is Brock Bowers, even in tight end premium. It seems like the top 5 are kind of a tier, the 3 quarterbacks, the 2 receivers, and then we see Bowers a lot at 106, maybe Odunze if they're a big Odunze fan. But they have Trey McBride. They don't necessarily need Brock Bowers. So like you said, kind of hope a quarterback is there. Maybe they're higher on Odunze than we are, and they like Odunze at 106. This team is, again, it could be in jeopardy. I think it's going to contend this year, though. I think it's going to compete.
I don't think there's really anything wrong with this. I mean, the team name, my team is in jeopardy. I think it's fine. I think one thing that pisses me off about this team is that when you go to their roster's not set, and it's having a really hard time deciding what the starting roster looks like. We've got like on the bench, we've got Zay Flowers. We don't have our quarterback in the super flex. It's just we got Jonathan Taylor in the flex instead of starting over Joe Mixon. Adam Thielen start. We just need. This is just. I'm really getting thrown off here. I do kind of want to talk about Justin Jefferson, though, in a 10-teamer. In a startup, Brian, your team Justin Jefferson, like in the first round. I think you just did it here a week or so ago. I've been pumping up Justin Jefferson in the first round of startups because I really like what's going on in round 2 for quarterbacks. Where would you take Justin Jefferson? What is the earliest spot you would take Justin Jefferson in a startup? In a 10-teamer, and let me kind of filibuster as you think here. Josh Allen, I think, is assuming 101. Let's just go there. Mahomes still ahead of Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
Where we go from there?
The earliest is 104 for me.
Okay. And who's the 103?
In this format, Lamar would be 103 for me.
Okay.
So you would take him over Hurts just because Hurts kind of took a step back last year of real life type thing.
I don't think it's even like an indictment against Hurts. I just think Justin Jefferson is like a guy that he's this generation's Jerry Rice. Like he's just he's different.
He's just gonna I think in a 12-teamer, I took Justin Jefferson at the 106 in a league earlier this year. I think 106 to 108, I think, is about where I would want to take him in a 12-teamer. Yeah, in a 10-teamer, I think about that 104 spot would be where I'd want him. So like, this is just an absolute staple to a team. Any team that's got Justin Jefferson, I'm very happy about it. But I think this team's better than what Mr. Baldwin's giving credit for. I think this team's got some pieces, got maybe some consolidation would be nice of a few pieces. You mentioned Cousins and Stafford, like with it being a 4-point per passing touchdown league, they do take a little bit of a hit. So when this team's going up against that Anthony Richardson, Jalen Hurts team, like that's not going to be fun. But I think it's a good team. I mean, this team, just fix your roster. It's really annoying to look at. The only thing.
I'm convinced he just kind of did that to fuck with us. He had his lineup set the entire year, and then he was like, he heard about this, and he was like, you know what? I'm gonna make these kids work.
Yeah, I mean, the 2 running backs that they have, JT and ETN, that's just a great duo to compete with. And if we talk about how they got ETN, a trade that has aged pretty nicely since they made it, on November 27th of this past season, this team traded Stephon Diggs and got back ETN in a 24 third. So
I like that trade. I like that trade. What happened 6 days prior, though?
What's that?
I said, what happened 6 days prior to that trade, though?
Yeah.
So to me, Baldwin is definitely one of the more active guys. You can tell.
Yeah, I like
love
it.
that
I
for
like
us.
It.
Yeah, trading Kyle Pitts for Jerry Jeudy straight up, man. This guy got impatient with Pitt's stinky season last year.
Yeah, that was around the time when I was propping up Jerry Jeudy as like a nice buy low. I don't think I meant that low, but also Pitts at the time was just absolute garbage,
like unplayable.
What can you do? You know, you mentioned, Brian, before we go to the next teams, you mentioned kind of like some transactions and activity. So like maybe let's just like run through that as kind of like a breaking point here. So this league's made in year one, and I don't know after they transferred over from Sleeper what this year's numbers are, but in year one there were 24 trades made, and here's how those trades were broken down. Our guy H. Monty had made 7, John Ramey made 2, Z. Doris made 4, Iceman Arnold made 1, Cannonball made 2, Bradford made 0, who is now Sam Coatney. Jay Singh made 4, Coombs made 1, Jay Hobby 1, Baldwin made 2. So I guess technically it would be 12 trades occurred if you think about each team needing to be on there. So 12 trades happened. That's how the trades were broken down. And then if we run through just waivers and free agency, our guy Bradford, who left the league, led the league in waivers and free agents moves. So he was active in that area at least. He just team wasn't any good. So he made 67 moves, and then behind him was H. Monty with 54. John Ramey 19, Z. Doris 35, Iceman Arnold, who has a good team. We're going to get to him here in a little bit. He's got a really good team. He only made 12. Cannonball 30. Jay Singh won the league, made 32. Our guy Coombs just, he said, screw it, I'm out. Like, I'm not worried about the free agent pool. He made 5. Jay Hobby 16, and then Baldwin made 22.
Yeah,
so
before
sometimes you can look at transactions as like a proxy for how active someone is, and like I wouldn't say it's a very linear of like how good your team is, though, but it's just an interesting thing to look at, I thought.
Yeah, before we move on to the next team, the last 2 moves I wanted to shout out for Baldwin here. Trey McBride in round 26, man, what a come up in value. You're talking about like a round 3 startup pick now. And then the Levis trade that I mentioned on January 13th after the season, this guy traded the 103 and a 25 second, and he got back the 106, Will Levis and Zay Flowers. So I like that trade a lot for him. Maybe the 103 and 106, maybe the gap is bigger in this kind of format. Generally speaking, I don't think there's a huge gap, at least for me personally there. I like Bowers a lot, or whoever's going to be there at 106. But I thought that was a nice move for this team. Get a quarterback 3 with some upside. Get Zay Flowers, who's got a lot of upside, in my opinion. So some nice trades by this team, I think, outside of Pitts for Jeudy, which, no one bats 1,000. But yeah, if we want to get to the next team, Cannonball, aka Tom Brady's retirement. So some of the highlights from this team is Jalen Hurts, Saquon, Jacobs, DJM, Waddle, Hawkinson, Purdy and Tua, Aaron Jones, Amari Cooper. It does not have its first round pick this year, but it does have the 207, 307, 407. So it did make the playoffs last year. Last September, right at the beginning of the season, they traded their first round pick for Cooper Kupp, which I would have told them to do. So I that became the 107 for Cooper Kupp. Right now, I would rather have the 107. In September, I would have said, yeah, go ahead and do that. So I have no problem with this trade.
Unfortunate. Yeah, I'm with you.
I think
made a similar trade, so I'm right there with it.
Yeah, on our podcast, people were losing faith in Kupp early on, and I was one of the people saying, yeah, go trade it first. If you think it's mid to late, go trade it first for Cooper Kupp. And maybe that wasn't great advice, but
hindsight.
Yeah, but yeah, this team looks pretty solid, though. I think it's pretty well built. It's pretty well balanced. What do you guys think?
Well, you know me, I don't like having guys in the wide receiver glob, and I like how this team really doesn't. It kind of avoids it. So, like, you got guys like Cooper Kupp, Amari Cooper. You're going to get a lot of points from these guys. You're going to get similar points to guys like a Devontae Smith or a Tank Dell from like a Cooper Kupp or a Amari Cooper, but you're not having to invest all that value in them. And then you can take some of that value and you can pour it into a Jalen Hurts or a Brock Purdy, which they've done. And then you got two stud running backs combining together with Barkley and Jacobs. And then I really like Aaron. I like Aaron Jones on a contender right now. I think he sort of feels older than what he really. I mean, he is old, but like he feels like he's dead. But he's got like a year or two to go. I don't think we should view him much different than like Cooper Kupp, for example, with like 1 or 2 years left. What the points probably could be about similar.
So let me ask a hypothetical, because I kind of brought Aaron Jones up earlier for the Christian McCaffrey owner. Would you, if you were this team or Christian McCaffrey, which side would you prefer? DJ Moore plus Aaron Jones for Christian McCaffrey?
So for me, I mean, I just think I can do more with Christian McCaffrey than that. And like the Aaron Jones thing, for me, if I'm that team, if I'm in a position where I'm moving off of CMC because I don't want to be a contender anymore, Aaron Jones isn't really on my radar. I'm more just like giving up than I am. I'm waving the white flag.
Yeah,
instead of like trying to contend, trying to win.
Yeah, to me that's Mike Armentrout in Breaking Bad. No half measures, Walt. So we're going the full measure. If I'm trading CMC, I am rebuilding or resetting, retooling. The other problem with a trade like that is the one concern that I have with this team is if we put their lineup proper, get Jacoby Myers the hell out of flex, put Jalen Waddle in the flex. Man, you're talking about their best bench pieces is like Jalen Warren, Jacoby Myers, and that's like it, man. So this team is really thin. It doesn't have a first round pick. Its first pick is the 207. Its taxi squad has 4 droppable players, so that's not going to help a lot.
But it has the San Francisco defense.
It does. Yeah, it does. It does have that Evan McPherson as a kicker, but
TJ Hawkinson is going to be on the IR to start the year, I assume, at least for 4-6. I mean, I've got a lot of TJ Hawkinson. I'm banking on him missing like 8 to 10 weeks probably. So yeah, this team is missing the tight
end.
And
then you're going down to Higbee and Juwan Johnson as a tight end if Hawkinson is missing the first like 8 weeks or first 6 weeks, whatever. So I just think this team is thin. This is a team that I'm not blowing it up in the offseason because, like you said, it's got Saquon, Jacobs, Kupp, DJ Moore, Amari Cooper, Aaron Jones. I mean, that's just a lot of work if you're going to retool or rebuild. That's a lot of trades you're going to be looking at. But I'm monitoring this team in September, and if I start 0-2, 0-3, I'm definitely maybe considering pulling the ripcord and seeing who I can get for some of these veterans because I do think it's a pretty fragile build right now with this bench.
Yep.
I think it makes sense
that you could potentially move. In a 10-teamer, it's tougher to move a quarterback though, which is kind of why I'm devaluing the quarterback position a little bit outside of those top few guys.
Yeah,
I would probably look to move Purdy if I were going to move one of them. Purdy, I think, just carries more value right now, and it gives you a better chance, like you said, in a 10-team 2 trade. It would be Purdy that it would be easier to move and probably get a better return.
So if you're moving Purdy, are you looking at like Cousin Stafford and then plus like a depth piece, or what are you targeting if you're looking to move Purdy?
I wouldn't even care if it was a quarterback, if I'm being honest. Like
you're fine with Hurts and Tua.
Yeah, like that. I think that's enough in a 10-team, and then you can always pick some type of like pick up like a Jacoby Brissett or Minshew. Yeah, just like a fill-in third quarterback. If you can get Purdy and turn that into like another receiver, that's what my goal would be probably.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, we'll keep it moving. Go to the next team here. Jay Sing Tutu, aka Singers Slayers. This team
likes
AKA the champ.
Oh yeah, yeah, and you know what? I can see why this team won. This team likes its running backs, so it's got Bijan Robinson and Brees Hall, arguably the best two running backs in Dynasty. It's got Trevor and Jared Goff at quarterback, and then it's got Ken Walker, another nice running back, Debo, Pacheco, Rashee Rice. Don't panic, trade that guy, by the way. Mike Evans, Stephon Diggs, Christian Kirk. So nice trio of productive veteran receivers that are pretty cost efficient. Then it's got Njoku at tight end, Cole Kmet at tight end, got Keenan Allen. So it's got a nice group of productive veteran wide receivers. So this team is solidly built. I can see why it won the title last year.
Yeah, I think this is definitely like we start ramping it up a little bit. This team's pretty deep. It makes sense how they're built out. You know, a couple strong receivers, a couple elite young running backs, a couple hopefully foundational quarterbacks. They don't have their 24 first, but they have depth at every position that it's like this makes sense as to why they won the just possible war of attrition that is fantasy playoffs.
Yeah, and this
I like it.
This team was the one that traded ETN in the 24 third for Diggs back in November. Trade that hasn't really worked out, but I can see why this team made that trade back in November because not only did it win the title, but it is super strong at running back even after trading away ETN. I can see why it wanted Diggs to kind of balance out the roster. This team made one of the funniest trades. Looking at all of the moves that teams made last year, I don't know what this other team was fucking thinking. Last July 27th, this team traded Jerick McKinnon and his 24th fifth for Rashee Rice. So basically, this guy got Rashee Rice for free, which is always kind of nice. That's
Z Doris.
This is just one of those. It looks horrible in hindsight, though. At the same time, because I was looking back, I got Rashee Rice in a lot of my rookie drafts, late 2, early 3,
early 3rd.
Yeah. So no, people didn't like him, but like
McKinnon might be like a real option, and it just so happened that he
also like this is
this
league's first year playing Dynasty. Like I could see how like something like that could happen, and then you like fast forward 8 months, 10 months.
That's true. Yeah,
like,
I forgot.
I would have never done that if I had known what rookie picks were worth. Like
they might have thought like a fifth. They might have thought a 5th round rookie pick was more valuable than what it is. Yeah, no, I can see that. That's fair. I should be a little more lenient on that. But yeah, terrible trade. I can see.
Be more lenient, but yeah, you suck. Sorry.
Yeah, that's a rough trade. But hey, you know what? Nice for Singer Slayers. Always nice to get a free Rice. Yeah, the only thing that I kind of was thinking if you wanted to go this route and that I wrote down as a potential suggested move is maybe shop Bijan or Brees. You're talking about Bijan and Brees are probably the running back 1 and 2 in Dynasty. This team has Ken Walker and Pacheco also. So if you can get like would you guys do Brees for Garrett Wilson? And again, the Garrett Wilson team isn't shopping for running backs, but like or Puka Nacua, something like that. If I can turn that Brees or Bijan into an elite young wide receiver, just for balance, I kind of like that, but they don't need to do that.
For balance on a team like this, I wouldn't mind it. I mean, this team's fun. I mean, this team's it's a really good team. It probably does. It could use me a little bit of wide receiver help. Like given that Diggs, Rice, Debo probably aren't like shoe-ins wide receiver 1s, where if in like a 10-teamer, you probably want one of those guys. But like you've got dominance at running back and you've got dominance in the flex positions. So I don't know. This team's pretty awesome. It's got depth, like you already mentioned.
Yeah, that's the thing that we've talked about some of these teams that we just talked about in the middle here that they could contend, but they don't have much of a bench. This team is the opposite. They got Keenan Allen, Mike Evans, Christian Kirk on the bench. So yeah, maybe leave your running backs alone and look to consolidate, do a 2-for-1 trade, like offer Mike Evans and Christian Kirk and see what those two combined will bring back as a receiver. But yeah, there's no hurry to do any moves. This team is ready to defend its title. I think it's probably a little too low on this list, but
yeah, I think it's a good team.
Yep, agreed. So
moving on to, we got 4 teams left.
Yep. Put in Ron, aka Coombs 97. So this team this is the Lamar and Anthony Richardson team I was talking about. So easily my favorite QB duo in the league, given the format. Then it's got AJ Brown and Kyron Williams. It's got Tank Dell, Mark Andrews. It's got Rashad White, DeAndre Swift, McLaurin, Calvin Ridley, Tony Pollard. Evan Ingram is a tight end too. So this team is set at tight end with Andrews and Ingram, in my opinion. It's got the 109, 209. So it came second place. It lost the championship to Singers last year. The trade that this team made that was awesome is this past November, they traded Schultz in a 24-3 and got Mark Andrews. So nice trade for putting Ron here.
What's interesting is that that was after he got hurt, right? So like he got hurt and then they made that trade. So they did that even while they were a contender. So that took some balls. So like I like that, making that move. That was a savvy move for our guy Puddin' Ron.
Very savvy. Ride with Evan Ingram and store Andrews. That's money.
Yeah. This team's got a lot going for them. It's got, I like the depth it has at running back. It could use maybe like some more high end talent. Would probably be my only knock for this team. Like it doesn't quite have the pop, but it has the pop at the quarterback position. Like this is our best quarterback duo, right? I mean, as long as Anthony Richardson can stay healthy, like this is nasty. Like you're running out Lamar and Anthony Richardson in a 4-point per passing league. Like, whew, good luck every week. I mean, every week you're just starting out a couple points ahead of your opponent just because of your quarterbacks, and you've still got like a top 7 running back. You've got a
AJ Brown is a nice wide receiver one. When I was looking at, what would I do if I had this team, kind of to your point, I was looking at this team has the 109. So after the NFL draft, I'm not trading this 109 before we get some landing spots for some of these receivers at the back end of the first. But can you package 109 with like Terry McLaurin or 109 with like DeAndre Hopkins, something like that, and see if you can upgrade that way? That's a move I'm considering with this team. There's no other moves that really stood out to me, but I wouldn't mind moving that 109 for a more win now piece.
I'm 100% trying to do that. I would include 109 plus Tank Dell, Terry, Hopkins, Rashad White, any of those guys. I would even maybe do a 3-for-1 if I could get like an elite guy. I'm definitely pursuing that as a possible option to really bolster and take down the defending champ.
So maybe we try and help. So you're down on Tank Dell a little bit.
I don't think it's being down on Tank Dell. It's a matter of like he has, I'm not going to say an embarrassment of riches, but he's got depth. He's got solid build out throughout. I want to get an elite guy in a 10-team league when I can. I don't think Tank Dell is an elite guy.
If I start thinking about like championship pieces on a 10-team league, I'm thinking this team's got Lamar, Anthony Richardson, Kyron, AJ Brown. Those are like your championship pieces. And then Mark Andrews, right? Mark Andrews. Yep. So 5 guys. Yeah, it'd be nice to get maybe one more championship type piece where I'm just like, these are my guys I'm going to war with.
So what do you guys think about this trade? Is this paying too much? 109 and Tank Dell for CMC.
Solid.
I mean, that could be a trade that makes sense for both teams in this league, I think.
Yeah. Like if I'm the CMC team and I'm ready to maybe hit the reset button, I can get 109, which, hard to say today, but you're looking at probably Brian Thomas. Xavier
Brian
Worthy.
Thomas, Worthy, one of those guys.
But in a world where maybe Michael Penix goes to the Vikings at 11, I posted that on my Twitter earlier. In a world where he goes there, him at 109 would be nice.
Or like
guys fall.
Brian Thomas goes mid first to the Jaguars, or even late first to Buffalo, and man, it's wheels up with that pick. So
yeah,
I
think that's an interesting one.
I like it.
Yep. Agreed.
So I think that is just like a little, like, again, nuanced move to like up your chances. You can never have a sure thing, but that's definitely increasing your odds of having that to be at the end there.
Yeah, so my only pushback from like a roster build standpoint, like if this was my team, I've already got Kyron, Rachaad White, DeAndre Swift, Tony Pollard, Zamir White. I've got 5 running backs. Adding a 6th running back to the fold is a little tough. Now Zamir White may not end up being the starter. Like, it's hard to say, but like I do have some investment there for my flex positions. Like, it's just a lot of running backs, but yeah, I mean, from a value standpoint, it's a fair trade.
Yeah, I'm probably, if I make that trade, I'm probably looking at trying to move Pollard, Swift, Rachaad White, and see what kind of receiver I can get back.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's keep it moving to the next team. John Ramey, aka "Let's not be boring, guys," which is a motto we try and follow here ourselves. But yeah, so if we go to "Let's not be boring, guys," it's got Patrick Mahomes, so it's got the best NFL player in the world. It's got Puka Nacua. It's got the 102 and 103. So in this format, you could potentially just double tap the receivers, Marvin and Neighbors here. It's got London, Pittman. It's got Deshaun Watson, Travis Kelce, Tyjae Spears. It's got the 202. And then it's got some depth pieces like James Conner, Derek Carr, Tyler Lockett. So yeah, the strength of this team is the draft capital at Patrick Mahomes, Puka, London. I might have put looking back on it, this team might be below the last couple teams that we did. It's just got a little less top end talent right now, but what stands out
as soon as you insert in like the guy that could be taken at the 102 or the 103, all of a sudden you're like, whoa, now we're seeing some bodies in there and it looks quite a bit better. It doesn't have the depth necessarily of a couple of these other teams, but like I'm really high on Deshaun Watson. I know you're not. I think Deshaun Watson can bounce back and at least be a solid QB2 in this format. This team had some interesting decisions in the rookie draft. I mean, you've already got Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. You've got Derek Carr as a very serviceable QB3. So at the 102 and the 103, what's the plan? Because you could be staring at quarterbacks there. Are you going to go Marvin Harrison Jr. and Neighbors? I mean, you've got Kelce right now. Is Bowers on your radar? There's like some questions that this team's going to have to answer when they get on the clock that should be kind of interesting. So this is a pretty fun team that it's got some like roster maneuvering to do before it can get ready to contend, but I do think it's a very strong contender at the receiver position with London, Pittman, Puka, very solid.
And then if you add Marvin and Neighbors to that, I mean, that's 5 really nice young wide receivers. So that with Mahomes and Watson is kind of why I bumped it as high as I did. If for some reason, let's say 101 goes a little off script and takes Marvin, so you're probably looking at shopping the 102 or shopping Deshaun Watson. I'm not trying to roster Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, and Caleb Williams necessarily. I'm trying to move
like value. In a 12 team, I have no issue doing that. But in a 10 team, like we've been talking about, there's just less people I can trade with that need a quarterback. So before I just smash Caleb Williams at the 102, I'm probably just checking around and seeing what I can do for someone to move in. Ultimately, though, I'm not passing on Caleb Williams at the 102. So, like, let's not get that twisted. I don't even know if I'm passing on him at the 101. I just think it's more of a discussion.
Yeah, no, I would take Caleb 101 even in this format. But the interesting thing to note is we are talking about this team is fun. It could definitely contend. It's et cetera, et cetera. This was the second worst team last year. They got the 102, 202, 302, et cetera. Deshaun, going down midseason probably didn't help that.
Mahomes not a good year. I think it
Mahomes
makes
had a
sense.
down year.
London was useless. Kelsey was on and off. It makes sense. Why this team
down
wasn't
year
that
for
great.
Kelsey too.
Yeah. You mentioned the CMC. CMC is a very decent. This is a trade partner for CMC owner, because the running backs in a 10-teamer, you're looking at Stevenson and James Conner, Tyjae Spears. That's not going to get the job done in a 10-team league. Let's just be real. So I think this team has some work to do, but there's a reason that it's valued by Keep Trade Cut as the third most valuable team. It's valued by you as the third most valuable team as well. So there's a reason that this team is where it is from a value standpoint. It's just more of it's honestly the fun part of Dynasty is this is where you get to kind of move things around and become a contender. That's
you can make your roster the way you want to make it, and it can work. In redraft, you're kind of pigeonholed into this is the format and this is what you have to do. With this, you can build out this team was a kind of a contending that turned into a rebuild. I'm guessing that all of a sudden now they have all this versatility and flexibility that they can go a million different ways. I was just sitting here in silence thinking about possible trades that I would think about doing, like Michael Pittman in 103. What does that net you? Something crazy, probably, right? That is something that I would be thinking about personally with this team to get a high end alpha.
Well, and again, this is another team that I'm probably knocking on the owner's door of CMC and saying, hey, I got an extra 25 second also. I got 102 and 103. I got some nice young receivers. What's a CMC trade look like between us? Or another one that they could talk to is the CTE team, the guy that took over the Orphan. We told him not to trade Jamar Chase and Garrett Wilson. But if Let's Not Be Boring guys wants to come really fucking strong with some of these 102, 103 pieces, maybe put some future draft capital and put together a proper offer for Chase or Garrett, I'm listening. So
yeah, I definitely listen. Yeah,
just based on his team name, he kind of has to do that, right? At this point, he has to throw a Godfather offer at somebody.
Yeah,
buck
definitely.
The trend.
All right, we'll keep it moving. We got two teams left. So the second best team that I had on here was H. Montgomery 00, aka On Stroud 9. This team's got a lot of draft capital to work with. So it's got CJ Stroud, and then it's got the 101, 104, 107. It's got Achane, it's got Higgins, Pitts. Nice price on Pitts, by the way. It's got the 110. It's got Bryce Young. It's a nice trade for Bryce Young, by the way, actually. Hollywood, Justin Fields, Josh Downs. So this team did get kind of caught holding the bag on Justin Fields. Todd, I know that's a feeling you're familiar with.
Very.
But yeah, this team was second for a reason. It's just loaded with nice pieces. It's got a lot of flexibility to kind of mold this roster however it wants. Again, if I'm the 101 here, I am taking Caleb. I'm not sold on Bryce Young whatsoever. Caleb and Stroud is a very strong combo. And then 104, see who's left there. Hopefully it's Neighbors at that point. And then Odunze at 107, you're cooking at that point. It's got, like I said, Higgins, Hollywood, Downs. It does have two of my favorite low cost receivers, Pop Douglas, Dontavian Wicks. So I do like both of them as kind of upshot plays. This team made a lot of trades kind of over the past year. It traded Judy for Pitts, which was nice. It traded DK and a 24 third for T. Higgins and Jalen Hyatt. So kind of DK for Higgins. Oh man, what a nice trade here. It traded Sky Moore for Achane and a 24 fifth. So
I think I saw that exact trade go down in one of my leagues last year, or very similar type trade.
They were similar. Yeah, they were similar value last offseason. Yeah. And then it traded Kamara and Mac Jones, who we don't care about, for Bryce Young. So basically traded Kamara for Bryce Young. We don't really care about the other pieces involved in the trade. Young potential
7 total trades from H. Monty. He is out and on the prowl.
Oh yeah. Brian, what are you trying to do with this team? Probably.
I think, like I mentioned, I think I would probably take Marvin Harrison 101.
Okay.
So that's what I would do, and then I know I'm going to get one of those other quarterbacks that I love, or Neighbors. And if I get Neighbors and Marvin Harrison Jr., I think Rice. I'm definitely not complaining. I think his roster is a great example of like just always like I can just tell he's like the guy that's like knocking on everybody's doors, like, you know, what's so and so's price, and you know, how do you like this guy? Like he's gauging what everyone. I'm guessing this is not his first league. I'm guessing it might be others, which is fine. That's you got to start at some point. Everyone was that person, but it seems like there's definitely some nuance to his moves. Hollywood, I think, is obviously gained value. I think Josh Downs has potential to gain value this year. He's got a lot of like guys that are not great, but they're not roster cloggers, so they can gain value for sure. Like
like
looking
Poppin
down on
Wicks,
his
like we talked about.
yeah, like looking down on his list, you could tell he just stayed active and made sure he didn't have any like junk in his junk drawer. Where I think other teams maybe were like, oh, well, I did the draft and my team's good, which is great. That absolutely works too. But you're not gonna get any lottery tickets by not scouring.
And another sign of that is guys like Poppin Wicks were picked up off waivers in most leagues. They weren't drafted in a lot of leagues. So the fact that he has both of them kind of also reinforces what you were saying. This guy was keeping his eye out on who was popping during the season.
Well, I think from what I gather, he's the one that signed up for the league analyzing, and so he's been listening to you, Matt, on picking up Douglas and Wicks. So
yeah, we have been on him also.
Is you giving yourself a pat on the back here?
I didn't really think about it, but I'll take the compliment from myself to myself. Why not?
Yeah.
That being said,
this guy's got a young team. I mean, it's the youngest team in the league. I think it's got a lot of work to do, to be honest. Like let's pull back the
I was just
a little bit. Like let's pump the brakes. Like this team has the ways to go. Like even if we add Marvin Harrison Jr., we add Neighbors, let's say, or Caleb Williams and the Neighbors or whatever it is, this team's not necessarily like ready to go win tomorrow. Like it is on the come up. I think it could be a playoff team. If it won the league, I wouldn't be surprised because like we've been talking about, a lot of parity in this league. But like there is a ways to go. Like I love Achane. He's awesome. He's a great anchor RB to have in the 10-team format. We've been kind of talking running backs more because it does seem like that there's more of an onus on them in a 10-teamer. And this team doesn't really have an RB2. So, and it's not going to add one with 101 or 104. So, and with rookies in this class, there's really not anybody there. So this is a team that's probably should be out looking to get a running back. Like I think this team has a lot of value in the built into the team, which is why we have it at 2. But it's got some maneuvering to do to become a winner, which is probably his plan. Like I'm sure that's his plan to do that.
I'm guessing as it's constructed now, I'm going to nickname it the all screenshot team / popcorn muscles. Like those are the two things that I think of right now as is. I agree that I think just based on the maneuvers that he's done, I think he's not going to just make all of these picks probably. I'm guessing he's not going to have this roster when the season starts. Yeah. And I think my guess would be that he's going to have a couple big moves here that shifts things. But otherwise, I say the all screenshot team because it's like you put something on Twitter and like check out like how cool my team is with a screenshot. But like it's not in like the redraft people come in like, well, that team blah 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 blah. Like they didn't win anything.
That team's going to finish second.
Yeah, like that happens. And like I think that's what sometimes dynasty managers will get not a bad name, but like misinterpreted. That like everyone's just chasing this where I have 5 first-round picks and a bunch of guys with potential instead of guys that are producing, right? So I think he has to find that balance if he really wants to like give himself the best shot at what he should be doing, which is contending for multiple titles, not shooting for one.
Yeah.
Well,
So
and
this team should be ready to go though once they make some of those moves that we're talking about.
Yeah, and this team is probably going to talk to the guy that we mentioned before, the guy with Chase and Garrett Wilson, and then the CMC owner. So there's some big names to be had out there.
Definitely.
Which
we talked about Bijan, the team with Bijan and Brees, like maybe they want to do like a little bit of a swap. Like that would maybe be another team that could be a part of that.
Yep, definitely. And then so we'll keep it moving. We'll get to the team that I had, the best team in this league. To me, this team is the favorite. Iceman Arnold 41, aka Joe Rogan podcast. So that's an Aaron Rodgers reference, I'm guessing. Joe Rogan, I like it. This team has Josh Allen, CeeDee Lamb, Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, Dak Prescott, the 105, Nico Collins, Jordan Addison, DK Metcalf.
Jeez.
And then we're kind of getting a little bit lower with Baker Mayfield and Godwin. And then it's got Brian's favorite, George Kittle. So it's got Kittle and Laporta set at tight end. And then we get into some further depth like Curtis Samuel, Mike Williams, etc. But yeah, this team I think is a rock solid roster. Josh Allen and Dak. Yep. Gibbs and Lamb are just key guys. So I mean,
once we've gotten to this point, I have figured out that the CMC owner should have like 5 or 6 teams that are possible options. Like, go dangle your boy out there. It's time. Somebody should be ready to pay up. Like, this team is ready to go. Doesn't have an RB2. It's kind of a theme here, guys. And it's partly because that one team, and I don't remember which team it was. Maybe one y'all can pull it for me. There was one of the teams that had the Brees, the Bijan. It had Kenneth Walker. It had multiple guys on the bench. There's actually been a couple teams like that. So there's a couple teams that are kind of owning most of the running backs.
Singer Slayers.
Yeah, and so J-Sing. So he's kind of cornered the market. And so now there's an opportunity for others to need one. But yeah, this team is a force. And CeeDee Lamb and Josh Allen on the same team. You've got the Dak stack with him. You've got Laporta. I mean, this team is fun. It's got the 105. So it didn't make the playoffs this past year. This team,
that's crazy, man.
It needs to be pushing in the chips this year to go win one.
Yeah, definitely.
Have to.
Yeah, and it had some nice value gains from the startup draft. They took Baker round 21. They took Nico Collins round 19. They took Sam Laporta round 13. So you're talking about guys that massively moved up several rounds. So like the 105 is where I'm starting off. Going to the CMC owner. If I'm the CMC guy, I'm probably asking for a little bit more. So maybe it's the 105 and 205, etc. But yeah, there's some trades that I would look to make with those draft picks, I think, because this team with Josh Allen and Dak doesn't need a quarterback. So maybe wait till you're on the clock, see if Neighbors is there. If Marvin and Neighbors are both gone, then at that point, maybe you're shopping that pick. But yeah, I think this team's loaded. I think it's ready to compete for a title.
Oh, guys, I just realized something.
Let me ask you this.
I just realized something. This team.
What's that, Todd?
This team scored the most points in the league last year.
I missed the playoffs.
And it went 8-6. I'm kind of confused because it went 8-6, but it has the 5th pick. They didn't trade for the 5th pick. I know that. So.
No, they got 105, 205, 305, 405, 505.
Yeah.
So they might reward the consolation or something like that.
Yeah. So yeah, but
we'll have to get clarity on that one.
I'm surprised this isn't the guy that dipped from the league.
Wait, no, he did make the playoffs. He did make the playoffs. He made the playoffs, but he got the 5th pick because he was the I guess he lost maybe a consolation. Yeah, he lost the consolation for the 5th place game. So that's how he got that 105. But yeah, scored the most points in the league. So this was the best team in the league, but didn't get the bye. And now we're adding the 5th pick. Like, Woo!
I'm gonna
This
be
team
honest
is
with you guys.
salivating to right the wrong it had last year.
This is a team that I don't often endorse this, but I think this is a team where you move a couple of your futures. Like I would love to move like my 25 and 26 1 in Addison to the Garrett Wilson team, for example. Overpay a little bit. That's a win-win in my opinion. You add that stud receiver, he gets an easier tank for one more year. He gets a young receiver and 2 draft picks that he has more flexibility, liquidity with. I mean,
So
that's
you're okay.
something.
You're okay paying Addison and the 2 first with the idea they should project late for Garrett Wilson.
I'm because of how this team is built. I think
Yeah.
it has longevity locked in with Lamb, the quarterbacks. I mean, it's got 105 coming in. He's got depth at receiver. I'm looking to get a top end guy, and I've done this type of thing where I've moved maybe an overpay for Garrett Wilson, even that like or a guy like that tier. If that's Puka
Yeah.
for you or whoever it is, find. I say Garrett Wilson because the guy's tanking. He's to me like that's a great way to like if you're talking about moving a guy off, that's the type of thing that you want to get back.
Yeah, or increase the offer, throw another piece or 2 on there and go for Chase. But yeah,
Yeah.
Either way, I like that. Yeah,
I just think this is a team that you cannot, like Todd said, you didn't win last year. You have to give yourself the best chance to win this year because windows close quicker than you expect. I've had, and I'm sure other people have had teams where you're like, oh, this is going to be great for the next 5 years. And then all of a sudden you have Javonte Williams and DeAndre Swift that were supposed to be studs. And now there's something different, right? And all of a sudden that window's closing instead of staying wide open.
Yeah,
Guys,
agreed.
We're not just a league analyzing. We're not just a market value podcast. We also break news here. So I'm going to go ahead and just break the news here live on the air that Rashee Rice was found with 10.8 grams of marijuana in that Lamborghini that he wrecked. And it's a state felony in the state of Texas. So just something to keep in mind. I don't know who the Rashee Rice owner was, but just something to wet your whistle with while we're sitting here.
So that's why someone offered me 204 for Rashee Rice. That makes a lot more sense now. I was like, why is he doing me a favor? He said he was doing me a favor because he's a Chiefs fan. I was like, what?
Now you know.
That makes more sense.
Anyway, back to the regular schedule program.
Ooh. Sheesh.
Yeah.
And he was driving, right? So he said he was driving the weed. Oh, man. That's probably not going to be good.
Man, 10 grams of weed being a felony, that's some fucking bullshit though. But yeah, I mean you gotta know what state you're in though and what the laws are, man. That's rough.
Don't be an idiot.
All right, so the Iceman Arnold Joe Throgan podcast. Yeah, I think this is a really good team.
Yep.
Should be shoving the chips a little bit more. I mean, it's got a ton of value. It's got a really good build for this year. But like we've been saying all along, like there's a lot of good teams in this league, and I can see exactly why like this team ended up as the 5 seed. I mean, had some bad luck from a wins-loss standpoint, but that's because there's a lot of other really good teams here. So I think going kind of like recapping, like as we're ranking these teams, the only obvious rebuild is the Sam Coatney team.
Yep.
From there, I think also maybe that J Hobby team that has the CMC team. I think that one's probably heading towards rebuild. Everybody else, like if you told me in a year from now, any of these other teams won the championship, wouldn't be surprised. Like they've all got some good teams, and like 1 or 2 moves away that could be league winning type moves.
Yeah, totally. And even that J Hobby team with CMC, man, they don't have to listen to us, man. They got enough pieces where like it wouldn't shock me if they made a strong run. So this team this league is really well balanced. I mean, that was the thing that stood out to me at first glance, and even after deeply analyzing the league, that still stands out to me. It's a very well balanced league.
I really enjoyed this, and I want to make sure we like kind of piled on a couple teams. Like again, like we've all made stupid trades. We've all had teams go sideways. That's just the name of the game. You got to play to win, right? So it's a matter of like, you can also double bird us if you want, like tweet us on, to say, hey guys, like, fuck you, I'm better than eighth. Like that's what we want. We want you to tell us we're wrong and why, or show us and prove us that it's not wrong.
So, and you can just easily go back to like September or October, any of those podcasts, and listen to the trades that we said that we made. And a lot of those were bad too. So like, hindsight here, we're like playing Monday morning quarterback. So it's easy for us to sit here and say some of these things now. But
I traded a bunch.
What makes it fun? That's why Dynasty's fun.
I traded a bunch of firsts mid-season for Will Levis that ended up like 105, 106. So I kind of have some regrets. So nobody bats 1,000, man.
This was a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope anyone that's listening enjoys it. If you do, please let us know so we know to maybe do more of these, right? Like that's kind of this was our first one. This is a trial for sure. And guinea pigs for sure. So like we want feedback for sure.
Yeah, we appreciate you welcoming us into the league, making us co-members, take a look at the league. It was a lot of fun. I agree.
Yeah, thanks to H. Montgomery for letting us in here. If y'all don't mind, go into the YouTube and tell us, which one you are and tell us why we're morons. Happy to hear that. But any comments and how you feel about or maybe like what moves you ended up making. It'd be interesting to hear about that as well. So thank you all for joining Dynasty Market Watch, presented by Bulletproof Family Podcasts. I'm Todd Halverson at Dynasty S-Flex. We've got Brian at Brian_O'Leary1, and Matt is at Dynasty Peasant on Twitter. Feel free to hop in our DMs also if you got any other pushback. So like I said, we are very open to some constructive criticism here. And we appreciate you guys for joining.
Go Celtics.